for me, what is catastrophe? People at a party like hallucinating and stabbing each other or something, right? Like wildly different. It means that we miss some of the other red flags in people sometimes.
Meet Alicia Meneses-Maples.
You're here. I am so happy to see you.
Her TEDx talk has set a global viral trend about glass children. She's helped millions of hurting glass children around the world feel seen. You've seen her on NBC, CNN.com, and countless online articles. Here is your host, Alicia Meneses-Maples.
Welcome to the I See Glass Children podcast. This is the place where we boldly dig into all things related to the glass child experience. We own our stories without shame, we pursue our healing, and we claim our value independent of others' thoughts, feelings, or expectations. Because you are important to me, I have to give you a warning. Some of the things you hear on the I See Glass Children podcast may be triggering for you, especially if you experience childhood trauma and neglect. And while I will occasionally have mental health professionals as special guests, I am not a licensed therapist, and this podcast is never meant to be a substitute for a supportive and healing relationship with a professional counselor. I'm your host, Alicia Meneses-Maples. I am a glass child, and I see you. Hello, everyone. I am Alicia Meneses-Maples, and I want to welcome you to another episode of the I See Glass Children podcast. And today I am absolutely thrilled to have a special guest, Todd Richardson, who is an adult glass child and on his own dime, because he believes in this project and believes in spreading the message, traveled how many miles?
I have no idea. I flew from Owensboro, Kentucky, so I had to drive
to San Antonio, Texas to be a part of this. Welcome, Todd Richardson.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me. Thank you for doing this.
Oh, thank you for being here. So, Todd, what we're going to do today is we're going to talk about your story. And you and I have known each other online for probably about a year-ish, something like that. And every time I read what you post, it moves me. It just reaches deep inside me, and I just have to sit with it and process it. And I'm thrilled that you're here because I think that your story and the things that you saw and the things that you endured, it's a story that the world needs to hear for multiple reasons. It's a precious story. It has value. And I think that there are many others in the world that have gone through similar things. So let's dive in. How old are you?
36.
36. Yeah. Okay. And tell me a little bit about your family.
Yeah. So family's from San Antonio. Mom and dad and Freddy still live here. Freddy is my older brother with schizoaffective disorder. My younger brother, Brian, lives now in Utah. So spread out a little bit. My wife and I live in Owensboro, Kentucky. We went from living in San Marcos, Texas, to my wife getting a full-time job in New Hampshire, and I wanted to get out of Texas. So I went to New Hampshire, and her job had tuition reimbursement, and they had a great MFA program. And so I did that.
And MFA is?
Master's of Fine Arts in Creative Nonfiction, so for writing. And then we decided we had a kid. We needed to get closer to family. And in 2020, we moved to Owensboro, Kentucky. Okay. So that's the full trajectory.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, how does it feel to be back in San Antonio?
Wild. For one, like a lot of the things that I'm writing about with my brother and like we're right here. Sam's Burger Joint is not that far away. But also San Antonio has changed so much, since I really haven't come down to downtown very often and Fiesta. And now I'm like, ooh, we're in the same town. All right, let's do it. Let's go get chicken on a stick.
And it is Fiesta. So you're going to be able to enjoy yourself while you're here.
Yeah, so there's always this mixture of like weird regret, sadness, like I'm coming home, what's going to happen? But also like some nostalgia and maybe some fun can happen too. Yeah.
So let's talk about your brothers. So you have an older brother named Freddy.
Mm-hmm.
He has schizoaffective disorder. And then you have a younger brother, Brian.
Mm-hmm.
And does he have any type of...
Dyslexia, dysgraphia. He'll never read his handwriting. But other than that, we don't know.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Nothing that we know of.
And what is the age gap between you and Freddy and you and Brian?
So Freddie and I are 2 years apart.
Okay.
Freddie is 2 years older than I am, and Brian is 7 years younger.
Okay.
We like to joke. Freddie and I have joked that Brian was a big surprise, and my parents swear that he was planned. And
You're not convinced.
Yeah, no, I'm not convinced, but that's okay.
Correct.
Yeah.
So, at what point did you start realizing that something was different about Freddy?
Well, in terms of feeling like he was different, a common thing with schizophrenia is that it's often misdiagnosed in childhood. So he was diagnosed first with ADHD and learning disabilities. So I always knew that something was different about him. But as a child, I didn't really know how to put into words the lack of empathy that was sometimes there, or the strange occurrences. He was very nervous to go talk to any sort of, order a burger at McDonald's. He would oftentimes ask me to ask the person at Barnes and Noble's where the thing he was looking for was, or, things that seemed extreme, but at the time I didn't notice. And then sometime when he was around, I would say 17 or so, he started talking about hearing voices coming out of music, talking to him. He had, ever since he was a child, was very, very interested in any mind-altering substance that he could get a hold of.
Drugs
and alcohol.
Drugs.
Anything that he could, even at 11, he was trying to snitch whiskey out of dad's, liquor cabinet and that kind of stuff. So always kind of knew, but then he had a psychotic break, his first, what we call his first known psychotic break, around when he was 18 and I was 16. So by that point, when he's talking about the Irish Republican Army and the Crips putting crack in his food because, just things that don't make sense anywhere.
Right.
Then we knew something. It was clear, but to me, the understanding that he was schizophrenic didn't happen until much later.
Okay.
Understanding that, that's what that is.
So let's circle back a little bit. So you said that when he was 17 and you were 15, he started talking about hearing voices in music.
Mm-hmm.
Was that a persistent thing, or did it just happen once and then he didn't talk about it anymore?
Freddie was really obsessed with the punk scene at the time, and he'd been very adamant that we only listened to non-poser or real bands, and he always had this particular fascination with it or obsession with it. And it's that kind of music is very political, it's very existential, right? He always talked about all sorts of stuff, but then he started really talking about the lead singer really talking to him. And that's when I really noticed a change, because he wasn't talking in general about the metaphor or something else that might come through music. He was talking about messages coming to him. But I had no idea what that was, right? By then he was also doing a lot of shrooms, right? So I'm kind of as a 15-year-old, mostly just wanted him to stop doing shrooms so we could have a normal family life. And I saw that as the problem at the time. But it really evolved later. And when he had that psychotic break, there is this notion of looking backwards through time and then seeing symptoms.
Right.
That was a symptom and that was a symptom. So
makes more sense in hindsight.
Exactly.
So he had, as you said, the first known psychotic break when he was 18. That would have made you 16. There are many people who are listening to this who have not had a person in the family with schizophrenia or schizoaffective disorder, they don't know what a psychotic break looks like, sounds like, feels like.
Mhm.
Would you be willing to describe what that was like?
Yeah, I can describe parts of it. It's difficult because it's not really one event.
Okay.
It's not like um, you walk into a coffee shop and something happens, and you walk out and something different is happening. It's kind of a lot of different things. But for one, he didn't sleep. I think that's really the thing that I look back and think about symptoms or warning signs. I mean, we're talking about days of not sleeping.
Really?
Or he would be awake all night, and we shared a room, so he would keep the lights on, and I would be too afraid to was afraid to ask for the lights to turn off.
Okay, hold on. I'm sorry. I just have to interrupt for a minute.
Yeah.
Because this is context I didn't have.
Mm-hmm.
At first, you said he didn't sleep, and I thought, well, that's really sad and horrible. But you shared a room.
We did. We shared a room through his psychotic break, and then I left I was an exchange student for 6 months.
Okay.
When I came back, so my parents had moved while I was gone, and I had a separate room. But by that time, when I came back, I was 17. Been about 2006 or 2007 or so. Even when I didn't share a room, he was already psychotic and living down the hall. So, but in terms of what it seemed like, he wasn't sleeping. He also, the symptom is called word salad. He will just throw words together. It sounds like talking. Oftentimes his is violent. So he can string something together like the lamp and the ficus will come and slit your throat. Doesn't make any sense, right? None of those things can do that, but it's scary to hear. And he'll do that. He would do that just constantly. I mean, he could do that all night, talking to himself. He would wake me up and say those things. When he finally had like a psychotic break and it was clear that he was not configuring himself in time and space the way that the rest of us do, he was trying to make himself look like me and me look like him. He's taller than me. He has darker hair, darker eyes. It's pretty hard to get us mixed up. He was trying to get me to cut my hair and him cut his hair. The way that I would describe it is it's intense paranoia that has no logical foundation anywhere, or at least not apparent in the room. The mood swings are, like I said, he would sleep all day and then wake up all night. But it also came with mood swings of intense screaming and yelling at things that were not there, not happening, nobody had done. But also then also very lethargic, like other times where he would just sit like catatonic on the couch, can't talk to him.
You were 16 while this was happening. And I'm trying to picture myself when I was 16 years old, the things that were going on in my life, the friends that I was trying to make, the boyfriends I wished I had, the challenges in school, and being faced without being able to sleep, hearing, it sounds terrifying. And these words that make no sense, the violent speak, yelling and screaming, and then looking at this person that you love and seeing them in a catatonic state. I'm trying to visualize myself in that with you and trying to understand the emotional upheaval that you must have been feeling while you were going through that.
I don't think I have felt it. I think I'm still trying to figure out how to get there, but I don't really remember emotions at that time. It was really, if we're talking about my memory, it's a lot of sort of a blank slate inside and sort of recording everything else around me. But oftentimes it was, I think, intense despair, of course, frustration and anger. I didn't really understand that my brother wasn't doing this by choice because I started this off viewing it from more of his drug addiction, right?
Yeah.
And I didn't really see his drug addiction as connected. I thought he just wanted to have fun and he was not, you know what I mean? He just wanted to party and he was just ignoring everybody else. But also the absolute isolation. I don't think I can really describe to somebody else how isolating that felt, because it was like everybody stopped talking to us. Like nobody really knew what to say or do. So it was just any support systems that we already had, whether they were healthy or not, they were now not there.
Family, friends, like you were not having friends over to your house.
Oh, not at all. Right. Like you mentioned, like you were 16 and thinking about boyfriends and stuff. It was not an option to bring a girl over. Like it's not going to happen. And it's still, to this day, it's difficult to bring friends over. Like we brought friends over from when we lived in New England, and they came down to see Texas. It was like big cultural exchange for them. And they, but my parents were all, everybody it was like this experience that nobody had really had in a while. It's a normal experience, but we all kind of inside wigged out, right? Didn't really know how to do that.
There's something about what you're saying, which is growing up this way, it becomes normalized for us. And sometimes we don't really understand how different and awful it is until someone who has not experienced this comes into the environment and goes, crap, what is happening here?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I really had a lot more of those when I started writing and sharing my stories with people. It's difficult at first because they criticize. I mean, it's not the same kind of criticism as they're not critiquing me. It feels like that because it's my story. But when I write about it and people are looking at this situation and they say, wait a minute, why were you alone? Why were you doing that? Like, where is the other person? Like, that's really the first moment where I was like, oh, there's something that should have happened.
That's a good question.
Should have happened that, right? Like, and my initial reaction was to reject it. Like, no, they don't know that, right? But like, and it sunk in of like, no, it's okay to be 16 and want an adult to help explain schizophrenia to you.
Which is actually my next question. So these things are happening. I'm sure your parents were aware of the yelling and the screaming and the violent, nonsensical words.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if they were aware of the drugs and alcohol.
By that point, they were.
They were. Where were they for you while this was going on?
They were not really there for me in the way that you're talking about. I think they were, and this is not an excuse or right, like this is just what happened. Now that I'm a parent, I have a daughter. She's 6 years old. I think about what they must have gone through a lot. It doesn't make it right or wrong, but it's their trauma too. And I really wish, like if they watch this, I really wish they would go take care of their trauma. We all have PTSD from the same stuff. It's really hard to go hang out and do things and move forward if we're not going to deal with some of it. It must have been absolutely terrifying. I can't even imagine as a parent what that is like. But really what I had, they gave me some time off, right? And let me go to Barnes and Nobles and do my own thing. I didn't really know who to call. Didn't really have a friend I could explain this to. Certainly not anybody who was going to jump in. So I went to Barnes and Nobles and I read every single book on the shelf of the self-help and psychology book. And then when I found the ones that had schizophrenia on them, I read them over and over again. And I'm just now facing the fact that reading is my own form of disassociation, but also it's not going to give me any control. I know what I need to know about schizophrenia. I don't want to read anymore, right? It's kind of a compulsive habit that it sounds healthy, right? Because reading is good for you, right? But it left me kind of chasing answers and running after in loops. So that was, I think, one of the most difficult things that they don't realize.
We have to pause here and highlight something that Todd just shared. When he was 16, he asked his parents to take him to Barnes and Noble, not for coffee, not for comic books, Todd went straight to the self-help section. As he sat there for hours reading anything he could get his hands on, trying to make sense of what happened inside his house, trying to understand his brother, trying to understand himself. Some of you might hear that and say, wow, that is so impressive. He's so resourceful. What resilience. Let me be clear. This is not a story of ingenuity. This is a story of neglect. It's a story of a 16-year-old boy with no adult to talk to, no therapist, no mentor, no one to say, this isn't your fault. You're not alone. The self-help aisle should never be a substitute for actual help. Todd deserved more, and so does every glass child living in silent survival.
You didn't have answers. You weren't receiving the kind of emotional support that you needed as a child. And I'm sorry, but if you're 16, you're still a child. You're still a child.
Yeah.
You didn't have the emotional support that you needed to understand what was happening. And there's this dual component that exists of being terrified and also still feeling love for that sibling that makes the other feelings that you're having even more complicated. Were you in danger?
Yeah. I think that we didn't really call it violence because it wasn't always police worthy. But I certainly felt afraid of my brother a lot. And the level of violence that he could escalate to, especially when he was sick. Even today, like when I tell my wife we're going to have a party over and I'm telling her I'm really nervous and she's like trying to walk me through my anxiety. And it's like, what do you think is going to happen? Somebody's going to stab somebody. Like, what? Wait a minute. That glass child, right? Like the level of extreme that my brain can go to, the register for violence and those kind of things.
The catastrophizing.
Right. It's a whole different, like other people are like, people won't like me or they won't like the potato salad or they'll like, that's not really, yes, I'm afraid they won't like me, but it's because they like won't be able to control the situation, the violence that might come out, and there's no violence coming out. That's the cycle, right?
I'm laughing about the potato salad because I wish that was the thing that we could be worried about.
Yeah.
Right.
Right.
Is
the
shrimp's going to be overdone
right.
or
the
potato salad doesn't have enough mayonnaise in it but
right.
No, this is a whole other level of catastrophizing is this it's this kind of unconscious thing that we do to prepare for the worst case scenario that is probably not going to happen in our current family situations. But we were on high alert so much through our childhood that it's just imprinted in us somehow. And it doesn't make sense to other people who haven't experienced it.
Yeah. I mean, going through college and not really wanting to go to parties that everybody wanted to go to, right? Because parties can be fun, but they're extremely overstimulating. And certainly in college, there is, when you're younger, there is this like element of out of control, right? Going to a house party, adults aren't there, right? But that out of control also scared me in a way that it didn't scare other people. Like it's very difficult for me to really be in that kind of like, yeah, let loose, like because of that constant fear of what might happen.
Out of control meant something different for you than it did for your peers.
I think what happens sometimes, and this is, I think, broader for glass children or maybe like people that go through trauma in childhood, but if home isn't safe, then you go through your whole life trying to build that safety. So I don't
say it again for the people in the back.
If home isn't safe, you go through your whole life trying to build that safety. And I'm sure other people in that room also had unsafe houses, or homes or whatever. But they were able to go for whatever reason, feel like they could go have unsafety because they knew there was safety waiting for them somewhere.
Somewhere.
Right. And I don't know that I was always doing that math. Like, it's not like if you would have asked me at 21, like, you want to go to this party? Oh, no, because I've got this. Right. But I just felt it in my body all the time.
Right.
I couldn't explain that.
I'm going to ask a couple of tough questions.
Do it.
Did Freddy ever hurt you?
Yeah. Multiple times. Before he was diagnosed, he really, and I think this is one of those things looking back that's a symptom, right? But he was very, very obsessive over identity, my identity and his identity. Like I said, he was obsessed with like music and not being considered a poser or right, being your authentic self and not playing like, you know, the way he said it was not being a pussy, right? Not growing up to be a pussy. So I played Smash Mouth's CD, right? All Star. I was like in 5th grade or something, and I just thought it was fun. I liked it. Went to the bathroom, and the music had stopped, and I heard some scraping sounds, downstairs. I went out, and he was like taking the shovel and stabbing at it and stuff.
Wow.
And I yelled at him, and I went for him, and he shoved me down, and then he started hitting me with the shovel. And we're in 5th grade and 11. We're not really old enough to do a lot of damage, but there were lots of times where he would try to see if I could move out of the way from a knife fast enough by throwing it in the kitchen ceiling and seeing if it could stick. And so it wasn't always fighting. But yeah, absolutely. There was one day I went to a high school counselor to meet with them about, I was going to be an exchange student and trying to figure out how the credits worked. And he was my ride home. He showed up completely, his pupils were like dinner plates, right? And he was hallucinating. And he stopped at a stop sign and just started screaming and got out of the car and ran. I could not drive a stick shift. I was stuck in this car. A cop car pulled up behind us, and I had to explain to the cop, well, I covered for my brother. I was like, well, he had an emergency, and I can't drive a stick. And, it turned out okay. But the amount of chaos, it's not just violence, but it's violence mixed with chaos that was there.
What's the difference between violence and chaos?
That's a really good question. Chaos can be fun. Chaos is not always a bad thing. Violence is always a bad thing. Chaos, there were times where I had fun with my brother and it was chaos, right? But the unsafety made it violence. And that overlap is what the issue is.
The intersection of those two.
Right.
So in 5th grade, you're attacked with a shovel. Did your parents intervene?
They weren't home at the time. He got in trouble. Grounded restriction or something. But I don't think they really understood that I didn't feel safe. They oftentimes, my family, there's a culture of brotherly love, or like brothers are supposed to do that. And like that's what siblings do. And I think that they just kind of thought Freddy and I will figure it out. Yeah, they kind of let us do that. But they didn't understand that with some of the other chaos in the house, right? My mom had a lot of anger. I think the one realization that I have as a glass child is our parents are not coming to the table untraumatized themselves. They've got their own patterns. They've got their own stuff. They didn't understand that I was stuck between those two things of kind of mom and dad and life and fighting over these things. Not only was there the sort of dysfunction and fighting and squabbling to survive within the family, but then I would also go back to my room with Freddy and was caught between keeping mom and dad and the family going, but I also had to be aware of what would happen in the room with Freddy. So I was stuck sometimes between those two.
This is really important. And I'm looking at the camera for a second because I want to make sure that everybody is hearing this. What Todd just explained. It's so hard because we don't have support. We don't have help. And we are supposed to take care of everybody, right? We're supposed to take care of our parents. We're supposed to be good. We're supposed to not cause problems. We're supposed to be perfect. And then in your case, also in my case, we're also not supposed to trigger our siblings. So we have this caretaking responsibility for our parents, but then from a survival perspective, and also so that we don't get yelled at or hit or any of those things, we have to extra behave around our siblings so that we don't trigger them into whatever kind of behavior it is that they're going to exhibit. And we're children.
Mm-hmm. Of course, it got worse. And there was another layer of responsibility with my younger brother as I grew. Because a lot of these events that I'm talking about, they didn't all happen when I was 16, right? They're spread out. And I think that's the thing with complex trauma is it's hard to say. And this is the train wreck. And that's why I'm afraid of trains, right? I don't get in trains anymore or something. If it was that easy, I'm not, you know what I mean?
Yes.
But with the balancing of those, the trying to figure out how to make sure we just didn't blow up through the day is a lot of what the expectation was.
Wow. There's this lamination of complexity that goes on with everything that we're experiencing and hearing and the responsibilities, and then what we're suffering and the lack of ability to talk about it or even to recognize it. And when you mentioned earlier that you still haven't felt, there's some things that you still haven't felt. I understand that.
Yeah. I don't really know how to feel it. That's the other thing that's hard to, I mean, I think a lot of people have an issue with feeling their feelings, but I think glass children, especially with those childhood, traumas and continuing struggles that have gone on for so long, actually feeling them and not intellectualizing them, not running from them, not, is way harder. It's not as simple as just going to therapy. I was going to therapy for a long time and finally landed on EMDR, and that's been helpful, but it's still not there's no and you flip this switch and you take this pill and you're okay. It's just not going to happen.
I wish.
Mm-hmm.
I wish.
Right?
Yeah, this is a real commonality amongst glass children, as you said, which is it's an inability to feel our feelings, but also an inability to recognize that we're feeling anything.
Mm-hmm.
And the technical word for it is alexithymia.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not that we don't have feelings. We have feelings. We just don't know what they are,
Mm-hmm.
and we don't know how to talk about them.
Mm-hmm.
I'll give you a personal example for me. So disordered eating is one of my go-tos, and I wish it wasn't. Like, why can't I take comfort in carrots? That would be so much better for me than sweets. But anyway, maybe one day. So I remember I was in a really difficult situation. And I remember I made a batch of chocolate chip cookie dough, and I was sitting there and I was just eating it by the spoonful. And I had this moment where I kind of looked at myself and said, this is kind of odd behavior.
Mm-hmm.
Like, none of your friends really do this. They might talk about having a pint of ice cream or something, but eating an entire batch of cookie dough, it's a little strange, Alicia.
Mhm.
And then I had this thought, why am I doing this? And then like a week later, I would start to feel something, but I couldn't put my finger on what it was. And then maybe a week after that, I would be like, I wonder if I'm upset about this thing that happened 2 weeks ago.
Mm.
And then maybe a week later, I could somehow express
Yeah,
that emotion. Is that something that you can relate to at all?
definitely. Especially, so I also think that while we have really a lot of difficulties with our own emotions, other people's emotions we figure out
That's true.
real fast, right?
Yes.
How everybody else is feeling in the room, and but our sense of like we're not feeling anything, but also feeling everything at the same time. It does lead to these really like intense coping strategies. I am in recovery, right, for drinking, really trying to get that under control. I would, I mean, this is something else about having a glass childhood. Life doesn't stop handing you trauma.
It's true.
My wife and I had 4 miscarriages.
Hmm.
I was the one who survived, right? I was the one making sure the laundry was right. I did the glass child thing. The other thing I did was I was drinking a lot of whiskey to make sure that I could, wake up the next day and do it again. I was trying to leave it behind in the glass. And I started being like, you're going to die this way. Like, this is not good, right? Not healthy at all. So yeah, I do. And also those delayed responses of like, sometimes I don't feel anything. And I'm not able to process my feelings. I feel a lot of things, but I'm not able to process them if anybody else is in the room. I've got to have alone time, period. Like, it doesn't matter how much I love you, how close we are. If you are a human being in the room with me, you got to go, right? Just
I
a minute.
can't talk about
Right?
it.
Yeah.
I can't express it. I can't.
Yeah.
And where do you think that comes from?
Oh, well, yeah, that's comes from where we grew up, right? Like the idea that we're just going to lock all of this away and deal with it some other way because you have to. There's not it's not true that we could just push emotions down and they'll go away somehow. It's not how that works. Yeah, it comes from living in chaos and having to take care of chaos. And you don't have time to take care of your own feelings. And as much as we want to say that emotions don't matter, there's a lot of like life that requires good emotional regulation. Workplaces, kids going to school, raising kids if you have kids, or just your own life, right? Just ability to have your own things and do your own things and have accomplishments requires emotional regulation, right?
Yeah.
And not having these wild swings with things that are keeping you doing the same thing over and over again.
So we've touched on this a little bit. Can you share, Todd, how the way that you grew up has impacted you as an adult?
Yeah. So for one, that we've already kind of talked about this, but the idea that our a register for chaos is all wrong, right? Like,
High alert all
right.
the time.
But also that also tells us, like, for me, what is catastrophe? People at a party like hallucinating and stabbing each other or something, right? Like wildly different. It means that we miss some of the other red flags in people sometimes. I grew up not notice. I thought I was messed up, that my family was the only one that had, right, all of this, and that other families were better, right, essentially. But that also left me with a pattern of burying my own needs, following other people, right, and their needs. That's one way that it affected me. I also really, really think that the way that I respond to stress, like I said, life is full of stressors, but now it's a lot harder for me to handle it. And now the expectation is I'm a dad, I got a job, there's way less space for me to handle it the way that I need to now. And people don't usually understand that. They usually see glass children as highly functional. Why can't you, do it this way? Why do you need that? Come on, we all got to buck up. But hearing that when you've heard it your whole life, I don't want to, that's one of the knee jerk reactions is like, no, I get to play now.
Like, screw off.
Right. Yeah.
No, I don't.
Mhm.
I don't need to calm down. I don't need to be sweet. I don't need to chill.
Or be productive or make
Right.
sure everybody else is like, no, I'm done. Right.
Yeah.
But that's a lot harder in adulthood because there's just way less space for it. And oh man, I mean, the other ways, parentification, I think, is way worse than people understand because with parentification, so I'm doing a new type of therapy called internal family systems and basically has you looking inwards and dramatizing your experience like the movie Inside Out. But instead of emotions, you've got parts. And a lot of people with childhood trauma have all these watcher parts or manager parts, right? And I, at first, was like, yeah, of course I've got that. I got trauma and I accepted that. And we got in, and then there was a manager for that and a manager for that. Right. And being in such need for control when you don't have the resources and the psychological capacity to do that makes all of these different parts inside of yourself. It's an army of different watchers and managers and observers, and they all create thoughts and they all judge you, and it sucks.
They're not kind.
Right. This is all about making sure that you are surviving, and that usually requires that, like, call it the football coach, that person inside you. It's like, get up, right?
Yeah.
But if you got an army of those, and that's all you've heard, this is not good, right? This is awful, and it leads to really childlike responses in people. That being said, I also feel like I have a much higher register for empathy, and I really thankful for that as part of that process.
I think the empathy, and you said earlier, the ability to read other people's emotions. We learned that as children because it's how we survived. I remember, like, I could hear a sigh from across the house and go, oh boy, Dad's not in a good mood.
Mhm.
Or I'd hear like a groan and go, oh no, what is Mario getting ready to do right now? Or just body language, or it's almost like watching a cheetah that's ready to pounce
Mhm.
kind of situation. But it does make us incredibly astute at understanding what might be happening with other people.
Mhm.
Um, and that empathy, because we don't want people to hurt the way that we have hurt.
Mhm. Yeah, I mean, the reason I flew down here, and right, if it helps anybody out there now, 10 years from now, whatever, right? I firmly believe that it's not just about the product, right? Where this podcast goes, I want to be successful. Good luck, right? This is amazing. It's awesome. When I think about what we are talking about here and what we're doing emotionally, right? Get a little woo woo and say like the universe, right? Cosmically, that just it's more important that we focus on sharing our stories so that other people, wherever they are, in whatever situation they are, can go, that sounds like me and I can do this, or I'm not going to do what he did. That was nuts, right? Like, so yeah.
So, one of the things you told me that you wanted to talk about today was rage.
Mm-hmm.
What do you want to say about rage?
Well, on the subreddit that we're on, it's really a common, that's what people are venting about. And that's, I think, what we've, as an online community, we've really struggled with. What do we do with this rage? As a glass child, it's hard because that rage is 100% legitimate, right? Like, I fully think that those 15 and 16 and however old kids posting on Reddit looking for help, be angry. You get to be angry, right? And I also think my anger was necessary for kicking and punching my way through a situation I wasn't going to get out of any other way, right? Like, anger is useful. However, I think that these children get locked in a relationship with their sibling where there is no change, right? you have to be this way. They have to be this way. You're not allowed to show anger. You're not allowed to be triggered, right? And that's not good. I don't want to be a voice saying you shouldn't have that anger. But that anger almost cooked me, right? Like I was angry for like a wall. I would describe it as a wall of lead of just like pure red, hot anger all the time or nothing. Because that's sort of the cycle. And I could tell myself why I was angry all day. I'm angry because of this, right? It's very self-righteous. It made me an angry person when I got out of that situation, right? Like what we think, their emotions, the more that we reinforce them, we carve those grooves in our brain to do those. I carved a very big groove in my brain to be angry. And it is okay to be angry, but being stuck in it cut me out of a lot of other beautiful emotions. And it also left me with really extreme responses instead of being able to come to sort of a nuanced, softer or gentler way to solve things. And I want to talk about that rage because I don't think, there's no point in trying to make it go away. But I also think it's important to say that that is one of those unhealthy coping strategies that works when we're in trauma.
Right.
And when we get out of trauma, it's time to have fun. I know you're angry. I get it. You get to be angry. You can go hit a punching bag, whatever. But I wish we could take all of those kids from all of the glass children and then just take them to whatever sounds fun to them. I know they're angry. I know whatever. I don't know if it looks like a theme park or whatever that is, but just let's go have fun, bud. Because you can forget how to have fun. You can forget how to be happy. And if you're angry all the time, you will just remember how to be angry. Living isn't that anger, right?
So what I hear you saying is anger is a natural emotion. Learn to express it, but don't stay stuck in it because it's going to rob you of beautiful things later.
Yeah, I think that's hard because there's no way for them not to be stuck in it when they're in those situations. One of the things that I think you had mentioned, I can't remember where you'd mentioned it, but you know, siblings hate each other sometimes. It's totally normal. And if they grow up and they still hate each other, like they're adults, they get to hate. I don't know. Like nobody says you have to like this person.
Right.
And it, telling somebody, no, you're not allowed to do that. I think sometimes they go, why? Right? Why? What about all these things? And it reinforces why they hate them or why they feel that way. So I don't want to say, do this with your anger, right? That's your anger. This is your process. You figure it out. But a warning that I would give is if you just do anger, that's all you will know. You will keep your brain focused on the person who abused you and the people who did you wrong instead of the possibility of doing right by yourself.
That's beautiful.
Trying. I don't know.
That's beautiful.
So
just a couple other questions. How are you doing today?
pretty good. You mean like in this moment or like in the present tense, like in life?
Present tense of life.
I'm okay. I'm in a PhD program that I don't know if I want to do. And that's a glass child moment where I get to decide whether or not I want the PhD, not because it's the right thing or people will be proud of me or anything like that. It's whether or not it's...
Or you're supposed to.
Right. But it's not easy to write creatively when you're doing academics. It's, and I have this big calling to go write and to go do something creative, not read more academic stuff. I struggle a lot with self-doubt. But I would like to say that I'm on the upward trend and that like I was in a really toxic work situation and left. That's a really important, step towards healthy choices. My wife and I have a beautiful 6-year-old that is, she's incredible. I see a lot of opportunities for happiness and health in front of me too. So there's hope. I'm a hot mess. You know what I mean? Like if you're asking if I'm well, probably not. Like we could go through the DSM. You know what I mean?
Hot bubbly.
Yeah.
Right here too.
So, sometimes it's hard because it also feels like all of my hobbies kind of need to be therapy. You know what I mean? All of my hobbies are yoga and, what did you do today? I went to EMDR. You want to know my ACE score? Like, it's not really, there's only so much time in the day, in the world. A lot of my time goes to just trying to figure out how to be right. Not like correct, but like just feel like I'm normal and
Better.
yeah. I'm just like
Better.
not sticking out from, you know what I mean? And trying to accept myself. I'm learning. So the violence and the chaos, the bruises faded a long time ago. You were worried about when you asked me about whether or not I was okay with coming down here and you didn't want more trauma to happen. Well, nothing in here is going to be, you know what I mean? There's nothing in here that's going to do it. Already been through it. The real issue is that I have to figure out still how to be an adult and figure, you know what I mean? Like I didn't have the opportunity to figure out what kind of music or how to listen to music. You know what I mean? Like, how do you just sit down and decide what music you like and don't like? A lot of experiences that I have that were about survival, not about how I felt about them. And now I'm like, I need to go back and do that. So it's not easy, right? Some days I don't even know how I'm gonna make it through work. Other days I'm like, man, I got this figured out. We're gonna be okay. We don't, but yeah. So I would say I'm a little bit of both. Some days I'm falling apart. But I also see at this point in life, like, okay, I have to keep doing these things to make sure that I manage this, but I'm not going to be that isolated and unhappy forever. May not always be the way that I think it is, but there's a way out.
I'm so proud of you.
Thank you. You too. You're putting on a podcast. Like,
Doesn't feel real, but yes, that is what we're doing.
I know. Like,
The day is
wow.
finally here. Thank you. Advice. Typically, I ask for advice for parents, but we're going to do another segment where we're going to dig into that. So I would like you to imagine that you have the opportunity to speak to a group of 20-something glass children. What do you want them to know, Todd?
You're already enough. You are the shit. You are doing everything so well. Like every time that I come across one of those people on our subreddit that's 15 and they're like, I'm 15 and I know I have this. And then they have a list of like accomplishments they like totally just skip over. Like they don't matter or they're not huge things to be dealing with. No, like you are doing so much. You are so strong. Go have fun. How do we do that? I don't know. Let's figure it out. Right. Like that's where it is. It's like, if you are in your 20s or 15 or whatever age you are, fun is good for you and you need to have it and you deserve it. Period. You're 16. Go be 16. You don't need to justify that, whatever that is. Right. Like, and also that, they need to trust themselves more than they think. Right. I mean, that's everybody. Right. But also glass children, I think, trust your intuition. It's so strong. Lean into some of your experiences and face your stuff. If your story is only yours and you keep it very tight next to you, that's okay. And it can feel very safe. It won't help other people. And it also might not be okay. Keeping it so tightened up like that, you're trying to protect yourself and control other people judging your story and stuff. And the more that we talk about it, take up that space, if you feel like you can and you have the courage, go for it.
It's okay for us to take up space.
Yeah.
We don't have to be small anymore. We can be as big as we want to be and as we need to be.
Yeah.
And it's okay.
And that sounds, I don't know, like that can be anything from it's okay for you to go get your nails done. It's okay for you to also go to the doctor. It's okay for you to have a hobby. It's okay for you to not have everything put together. And it's okay for you to sit on your butt for a whole day. You know what I mean? Like,
it's okay for you to say no.
Mm-hmm.
It's okay for you to say, I don't want to do that.
Mm-hmm.
It's okay for you not to know what you want and just sit with that.
Yeah. And to figure it out, right? You're allowed to not know or think you wanted this thing. And that, right? Like the natural processes of life and figuring yourself out, that's what we missed. That's a big, like, no matter what the trauma or the intensity was, we all have very different stories, but oftentimes that's what we're all missing is this building yourself.
Todd, when was the first time you heard the term glass children?
It was suggested to me as a subreddit on Reddit, and then people were talking about where it came from, and I found your TED Talk on YouTube. So that was a year ago.
How did it, when you saw the term and heard the term, did it do anything for you?
Yeah, it instantly was. I was like, "Oh, that's what that is." Like that fit perfectly. Of like, "Oh my God, there's other people that feel that way too." I think that a lot of the other projects that I've done, I have a master's in history where I wrote about the deinstitutionalization of mental hospitals in Texas. And I'm in a rhetoric of health and medicine program where I'm looking at how patients advocate for themselves. That's the language of how they do that and how they break through. It's a lot of things.
Yeah.
Can you remind me what your question was again? I'm sorry, I got lost.
I don't even remember.
Oh, man.
I'm just sitting here like so impressed by the things that you're talking about.
But, I think I did all of those things in order to try and answer a lot of glass children answers. Like I was trying to figure out why is this happening, right? The safe place for me was school, so I think it just all played out in school.
Right.
But as soon as I saw that there was a name for it, it was like, that's what I've been doing, right? Like I have been churning over what the heck, do I have an identity? What is this? What are these feelings? I went to a lot of other sort of communities like RCPTSD and, looked at other, I think that glass children is not a medical term. We can't diagnose anybody with it, but it's definitely got a lot of clusters of other types of abuse, right? Psychological abuse and neglect, and sometimes there's physical abuse, and right there's a lot of things going on. But I didn't know that applied to me. I didn't know I got to claim it. And when other people were also part of this, it gave me a framework to really understand myself. And then also, when I knew that there were other people still going through that, right? Other children still having like those awful experiences. Okay, well, mine has a purpose now. Like I can help you with some, like, or at least I can tell you what I did, right? I don't know if it's going to help you. That's your choice. I don't want to take away any choices from glass children.
But you're not alone.
Right.
You're not alone in this. And we see you.
Right.
And we understand you. And by the way, for everybody that's listening and watching, the subreddit that we keep talking about is Glass Children. And if you are listening to this and you can relate to it and you're looking for a community to land where you are not going to be judged for anything that you say, I am so thankful for the creator of our subreddit. And in fact, I did an episode with her, interviewing her. It's fire. It's so good. But that's the resource that we keep referring to. And you can get on there and we're there for you and support you. Todd, thank you for being here.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for sharing your story. It's not easy to share our stories. There's a level of scariness, fearfulness with being that vulnerable. And I've done a lot of interviews with people who've wanted to be anonymous. And so for you to come forth as you are and to tell us about these things that happened in your life, I'm so grateful. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me. Thank you for doing this. It's important. Appreciate it.
Todd's story is a portrait of pain most people never see. It's what happens when violence lives in your own bedroom and the people who are supposed to protect you don't have the tools or the willingness to name what is real. But what makes Todd's story even more powerful is not just what he survived, it's how deeply he's committed to healing, to breaking cycles, to feeling what he was never allowed to feel, to learning in adulthood what no one taught him in childhood, like how to have boundaries, how to talk about anger without becoming it, how to choose relationships that aren't built on survival or silence. Todd is doing the work most people avoid for a lifetime, and he's doing it not just for himself, but for the daughter he's raising differently. He reminds us that trauma doesn't end when the threat is gone. It ends when the truth is told, when the body is safe, when the child inside you finally hears, you didn't deserve that. Todd's story is not a redemption arc. It's a reclamation. And if you grew up like Todd, watching someone you love unravel while no one gave you the language or the help, you're not alone. You are worthy of peace, worthy of understanding, and worthy of finally being safe, even safe from the past. How are you feeling? Remember, if you're struggling, reach out to a mental health professional. You do not have to do this alone. Thank you for being with me today, and don't forget to share this episode with your bestie, your therapist, your teachers, your minister. Sharing is caring, and hearing is healing. This is the I See Glass Children podcast. I'm Alicia Maples, and I see you. God sees you, and Jesus loves you.